Hello, I'm Marissa Anderson, occupational therapist with Sunny Days, and today I'm taking you through doing a daily note. The first step is to log into WebPT, and then this will be the screen that comes up every time you log in. So you have a couple of options from here to find your kiddos. You can just go to Display Patients, and if you click this search box, what it will do is give you the list of all of your patients. I'm not going to do it today for HIPAA reasons. You don't need to see all my kids. But it will show there, it will show all of your children. The other option is to type in first or last name. And select your discipline. Today we're OT. And now I'm actually in the record for John Doe. So we will make a new daily note. And wait, here we go. So at the top you have your 4 tabs: subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Gotta love soap. You have the date, so make sure you're in the correct date. It generally populates as the date of the day you're creating the note. So if, for example, you saw the child last week and you're now getting to your note, please make sure you put in the actual date that you saw the child. The next thing is visit number. The should, and I emphasize should, auto-populate with the correct visit number. If for some reason you've done the evaluation, you're doing your notes out of order. For example, you did the eval and you did a daily note, and then for some reason when you went in to do it, you wrote your daily note first into WebPT. Make sure you get the visit numbers in the correct order. And then you have your diagnosis and your treatment diagnosis with your ICD-9 codes. In general, this will start out populated for you. Occasionally, you will have to put it in the first time. Make sure there is always something in both of those boxes. And again, in general, they should be the same code. So then we go down, and we have the current complaints and games box. This is the same statement that I wrote in my last daily note, so it left it the same. This is our S, our subjective statement. So we can put that Mom stated that John is tired and not feeling well today. He had a hard time following directions. So there we have a little subjective statement. We don't need to do baseline level of function because that was done in our assessment. I do check the boxes for current functional limitations. So whichever ones apply, today we can pick these since this is John Doe, and we'll say he has a hard time with self-care, posture, and handling objects. You don't have to add another statement into this box, but you can if you feel that it's needed or that it applies. For example, if you have an infant and Mom says they're rolling over now, or they've started doing something new, or they're doing something less, you could go ahead and put that in that box. Or you could choose to put it in that first subjective statement box. Up to you. We rarely use pain scale. If you feel like it's appropriate, go ahead. Otherwise, move on. And that's going to be kind of a theme right now with WebPT, is there's a lot of information in here we don't use. So please feel free to skip things if they're not applicable. Social history, if it changes, you could update it, but you should have done it in the eval. So mine is still populating from the eval that John lives at home with various family members. So you can see that there, and that he's currently getting PT, OT, and speech at home. But again, you shouldn't have to fill this out for every daily note. It'll be populated after you've done it on your initial eval, including a dummy eval if that's the way you had to do it. Okay, so I hit next, and now we're in the objective tab. The subjective findings box is where we generally put our objective statement. I imported from my last visit which is fine for the example today. And generally we don't do exactly the same things every week, but if it's applicable, you could import it. I generally import it and make changes visit to visit. You don't have to write a goal into the objective box because that is already in the assessment tab. So under objective findings, I'm generally putting things like the number of repetitions, the duration, the number of successful attempts. John did something. For example, John tolerated tummy time for 3 minutes, or John was able to stack 3 blocks, 1 attempt, and 4 blocks, 1 attempt, something like that, where you're putting the measurable data into that box. Otherwise, the big thing on this tab is billing. You're going to scroll down through all this lovely extra information to your direct time codes, and you should be able to see my little mouse pointer circling that and making funny things happen on the screen. So again, this is populated from my last daily note. So therapeutic exercise, last week I did 1 unit, which is 15 minutes. And I just put a little bit of statement of what I did that's therapeutic exercise. Very basic. I don't need every activity that you did. I just need a general idea of what you did that's considered therapeutic exercise. I also did therapeutic activity and some feeding under self-care. I'm going to go ahead and leave those the same for this note. And then I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to go back up to the top. So now we're in the assessment tab. This is where you will put, generally in a SOAP note, it's problems and goal progress. Goal progress is already down here, so you don't have to type that into this box additionally. Now this one you can't import from your last note, but you can see what your last note was on the right over here. And you can also copy it if your laptop mouse cooperates. Nope. Okay, well I'll type my own. So John continues to require hand over hand assistance to scoop with a spoon. He is spilling 80% of what he is able to obtain. And parent education, if you do any week to week, you would put it in this box. So let's say we discussed alternate spoons, adapted spoons with mom. And then we have our problem list and our goals, which again, these populate from your first daily note or from your initial eval, as long as you checked this magical add to smart text box. So what happens is it might not fill in on your first daily note, but if you start to type, and I always start my goals and problems with the child's first name, so you can see all of the problems that I've used in the past. So you can either do the same as I'm doing and do it individual to each child, or you may have a list of generic problems and goals, and then those would populate as well, as long as you check that add to smart text box. Then we get down here and there's goal list. So my first goal is that John will string 3 large wooden beads, and so far he's met at 35%. I'm going to go ahead and update progress today and say he's at 40%. And we'll say he was able to string 2 beads this week. So you do not have to update progress every week, but you do have to update progress as progress is made. So if it doesn't change, don't feel like you have to add extra information. And so then we click next. And this is our plan tab. So the generic statement, continue with goals and objectives as stated. If you have something specific planned, you could fill that in as well. If you're going to try something new, a new technique, a new modality, a new piece of equipment, you could put all of that in there. For example, We did a trial piece of kinesio tape today to see if John will tolerate it. We'll go ahead with a trial for scapular stabilization next week, if you wanted to include that there. When you're done, you do not have a finalize button, you have a forward button, and you will find my name, and again, that's Marissa Anderson, and you will send it to me, and I will finalize it once I have looked it over. And I may have corrections to email you, and if not, I will finalize it. So if you see a note's been sitting for a while, double check your email for me. This box will pop up if you're not using the scheduler. And if you're not using it, go ahead and say okay. It is nice and preferred, I guess, if you can use it. If you're having a hard time or you're finding that particularly cumbersome, it's not a big deal. But you can click in a time and it'll pop up a box, so you would search by your patient, Doe, and then you could put what time you're seeing them, and you make it repeating weekly or bi-weekly or how often you're seeing this particular person. Mouse. So down here repeats weekly, and that's nice because then you can see where other disciplines are seeing them in the event you needed to know that, or just because then WebPT won't ask you the annoying "why isn't this child in your scheduler" question every week. Up to you. And that is an OT daily note. By now you should all have my step-by-step instructions with the pictures on how to do this. If you don't, please email me. I am more than happy to email you a copy. If you have additional questions, please email me. And you also have that for the eval as well. The eval, I have created the OT specific eval. It should have my name next to it when you're in a new eval. I've taken a lot of things off that WebPT already put on. If there's something missing that got taken off or was never there to start with that you feel is relevant, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to put that back in. Or if you think we need a second profile made for something more specific but that you find yourself doing, I could create that as well. Just shoot me an email. And that's it. Thank you.
Can I say one thing I figured out on the scheduler?
Yeah.
You're probably all over this stuff, but I a couple times schedule a patient, and then when I go to forward to Beth, it says they're not scheduled.
Yeah.
And I finally figured out it's because I was in the wrong discipline. And I noticed when you went in, it was saying ABA.
Yeah.
And it will act as though you don't have an appointment.
Okay.
So.
Good to know. So if you're using the scheduler,
because it was sitting there.
Make sure you're in the right discipline.
And the only way to figure it out is to open it back up. So.
I think I did that a few times.
Yeah.